African region is a place to watch in the space of oil and gas exploration. Now, countries have continually discovered new commercially viable deposits, and the lesson we are getting from Tanzania is that the Chinese oil giant CNOOC is in talks with the state there to try and explore off the coast of Tanzania as the country eyes more potential in the oil and gas space. Now, we'll be digging more into details of that story. It's a developing story in our subsequent shows. I'm your host, Charles Boji. Welcome to Money and Markets. The poor quality of inputs is one of those aspects that still stands between agriculture transformation and where agriculture sits in the country today. Now, certain initiatives have been taken at regional government levels to try and see how farmers in these districts and regions can access better inputs on the side of seed.
As Ngeta, we do research in northern Uganda, and we're charged with Lango and Acholi region. We do 17 districts, 9 districts in Lango and 8 districts in Acholi. As Ngeta, we do, as I told you, our research is based on the narrow strategic plan, and through those 3 different programs, we have some research activities undergoing under those programs. Under the crops program, our research focuses on adapting and improved crop varieties. Over 17 crop varieties are being adapted here at Ngeta Zadi. We also do research on managing product constraints of crops, especially in citrus. We're doing work on managing citrus diseases and pests. We're also doing work on trying to conserve the trees, like the shea nut especially, which is an endangered tree. We're also doing research on value addition of products, crop products, especially shea nut. And we also do training of farmers. We do training of farmers in improved crop technologies. Then also still under the crops program, we also do capacity building of farmers in producing seed and producing foundation seed. Under the outreach program, we also do training of value chains. We assess value chains, we see how to improve value chains and improve marketability of products, and also build capacity of farmers in business. We have trained over 50 local seed business groups in Acholi region under the project of Prelna. Seed is a big challenge in northern Uganda, so when we prove farmers how to build their capacity in producing producing quite declared seed, they can access the seed easily. For us, we provide them with foundation seed, and they multiply and get a quite declared seed. So through that project, we do a lot of capacity building. Then through the foundation seed, we also multiply foundation seed here, and farmers can access this seed readily here when they come. So they trust us as a center. We also have seed testing facilities here. We normally do provide seed testing. We test for farmers the seed, and then they can take seed which is ready, can germinate well, because there's a lot of problem of fake seed on the market. So once some farmers use our services here, they can access this quality seed. And also some seeds have seed-borne diseases, which are carried over from season to season. So a farmer needs to test the seed to be sure that there are no seed-borne pathogens in the disease, in the seed, which can be introduced in his garden, and some of them, when they have been introduced, they become endemic, they can't live. So seed testing is very important. And also another reason is that sometimes some of these farmer groups get big supply contracts with government. And one of the conditions is that you need to supply a seed you need a certificate which shows that your seed is authentic. So that's why you also have to have your seed tested. That's how some of them come to be tested. Regarding the soil, of course, sometimes farmers just apply blanket application of fertilizer without knowing the status. So you need to know the status of your soil to determine the nutrients which are lacking, and also depending on which crop you want to grow. So it's very important to do soil testing based on the type of crop you're growing. Because sometimes you may just apply fertilizer, yet your soil is very rich in fertilizer. So fertilizer testing is very important for some of those. First of all, even to identify first of all the gaps, and also to avoid also wasting money by buying fertilizer, yet your soil could be already having those fertilizers. Then also, with regard to capacity building of the youth, we have also set up a number of enterprises, income-generating enterprises within the station. There are around 9. We have mushroom, we have shea nut value addition, we have apiculture, we have briquette making, we have fish production, we have micro irrigation, we have bamboo production. So the farmers, the youth, the farmers in the region normally come here and attend training on value addition and income generation activities. So that is, we have so far trained from farmers from Otuke and Kitgum. Research needs a lot of funding. The funding has not been adequate, and most times it is intermittent and then it comes on time. So if we can, the policymakers can increase the budget funding to agriculture, because agriculture is the backbone of this economy, but the percentage budget contribution to agriculture is still low, even by African standards. So we hope we can get more funding for research. The issue of increasing enumeration to scientists, there's also still a challenge. We hope the president has been promoting this, that scientists had to be funded better, but we still hope they can do better if we increase funding to avoid there to be a lot of turnover of our very good scientists to the neighboring research institutes in other countries.
In our Big Story segment today, we try to look at how the financial year budget 2023-2024 relates to the sector where you sit. It doesn't matter whether it's agriculture, manufacturing, services, or any other. We're trying to look at how this will impact you in the new financial year.
Uganda's tax base remains narrow in the face of the country's aspiration to increase domestic revenue mobilization to finance the biggest portion of the country's 52 trillion budget in the financial year 2023-2024. To this, pundits note that some sectors continue to shoulder a fairly bigger portion of the budget, greatly affecting the operations.
As a matter of fact, we are talking about 25% of our GDP coming from agriculture, but that alone contributes less than 1% of the tax revenue. So clearly, there are people who are making money, there are people who are exchanging cash but not paying taxes like you and me who are working. So we need to increase our tax base to manage whether it's smuggling or a few other things that we need to do, or just being transparent about our records to ensure that we all come to the party and commit to those to that tax revenue.
While some of the money to finance the budget is expected to come from taxes, a portion is expected out of non-tax revenue as well as debt. But debt currently is a point of concern in some quarters, given its size and the fact that it today stands as the biggest budget expenditure item. While getting debt may not be avoided, pundits note that more prudence in managing it is needed.
I think the whole aspect of borrowing comes from how much government is able to collect in form of tax revenues. So you've had the challenges around tax revenue, the fact that not everybody in the country is able to put something into the tax coffers. But guess what? The medical, the public service, and all the other aspects of infrastructure have to take place. As a result, it becomes very difficult for such economies to manage their economies without borrowing. And that's why we go and borrow. But that's something that we have to manage to try and ensure that whatever money we borrow, we're able to get a return. It's boosting the GDP and subsequently improving our tax revenues.
Other experts think that borrowed finances this year should be invested in places with higher multiplier effect and impact to the economy, where it should move back to support domestic revenue mobilization and also place the country in a better position to meet its obligation.
Because debt by GDP, if you want to rate it that way, it is subject on two things. What did you borrow to do? If you decide on what you need to borrow for, then you all actually scale down the rate at which you acquire debt. So that's number one in reducing it from where it is, 48% of GDP, to a lower level, making sure you are borrowing less Two, the projects you are borrowing for must grow your economy because that's the GDP. So even if the debt increases a little bit, but GDP increases more, then the ratio will come down.
Pundits are also encouraging government to get away from the expenditure-driven budgeting as a strategy to reining in debt expansion.
We must follow up revenue-driven budgeting, but also even purposes, the goals. What is it that you're going to do? Don't just borrow and build health facilities. They will not give you the value needed. Health sector is about my health and your health. So if the health workers, the interns, the senior health officers are not there, if the equipment is not there, if the drugs are not there, the supplies are not there, you won't get the goal out of the health sector. So we need to engage the health sector to say, how do we fill all the four quadrants? The physical infrastructure, the equipment, the personnel, and then the drugs and supplies. All those need to be covered. That's the integrated planning of the conversation that come through.
The Treasury is, however, offering assurances that despite its size, the country's debt is still manageable.
You know, these things concerning debt is an emotional conversation, especially in this country, because debt in Uganda, people understand it very well, because Ugandans are more indebted than Uganda, the private people. Most people who discuss debt, they are facing problems themselves with the debt collectors. When you go to Parliament, you go to some public servants, salary loans, they have salary loans, they know the pain of paying debt. I think we are becoming a bit emotional, but I want to tell you one thing. Our debt is sustainable. Uganda has one of the most sustainable debt repayment plans in the developing world. If you checked with our peers, Uganda is doing very well.
So as we go into the new financial year, it is clear that the taxman has a huge task of widening the tax base plus ensuring efficiency in revenue collection. But most importantly for the government, the task is to ensure value for